The morning was quiet in the small town of Willow Creek. Birds sang on the branches of maple trees, the sun rose gently across the horizon, and the streets looked peaceful, as if the world was in no hurry. But inside a small white house at the end of Maple Street, the sound of paper trembling in human hands broke the silence. Daniel Hayes sat at the edge of his bed, staring at the letter he had just received. His heart beat fast, his palms were sweaty, and his face had turned pale. He read the words again and again, but they felt heavier with every glance. Final notice. Your loan must be paid within 30 days, or your house will be taken. He dropped the letter on the floor, leaned back, and rubbed his tired eyes. Daniel was 32 years old, tall, with light brown hair and a face that showed both strength and weariness. Life had not been kind to him lately. He had lost his job 6 months ago, when the factory shut down. Since then, he had tried everything: small jobs, selling his old guitar, even working at the local diner, but it was never enough. The debt hung over him like a dark cloud. It wasn't just money. It was a chain tying him down, stealing his sleep, and haunting him every morning. His father had left the house to him before passing away, and Daniel had promised himself he would never lose it. This house was more than wood and bricks. It was where his childhood laughter had echoed, where his mother had sung lullabies, and where memories lived in every corner. Losing it felt like losing his family all over again. He closed his eyes, thinking of his father's voice. A man's word is his honor, Danny. Pay what you owe. Face life with courage. But courage was hard when the walls around him threatened to collapse. Daniel stood up and walked to the window. Children were laughing outside, running with colorful kites in the cool morning air. For a moment, he wished he was one of them, free, without worries, without debt. But life had pushed him too far from innocence. Still holding the weight of the letter in his mind, he went downstairs. The small kitchen smelled of yesterday's coffee. He poured himself a cup, though it was cold and bitter. His eyes caught sight of a small framed photo on the counter, him and his childhood friend, Lily Bennett. She was smiling in the picture, her blonde hair falling gently on her shoulders, her eyes full of light. Lily had been his neighbor since they were kids. She was kind, always the one who believed in him when no one else did. Even after she moved away to study in another city, they kept in touch. And last week, she had returned to Willow Creek for a teaching job at the local school. Daniel thought of her now, of how she had hugged him when they met again, saying softly, "I'm glad I came back. Maybe it was meant to be." Meant to be. The words stayed with him, even now, when the world seemed cruel. But love, Daniel thought, didn't pay debts. Hard work did. Money did. And he had neither. As the day passed, Daniel tried to work at the diner, carrying plates and forcing smiles at customers, but his mind wasn't there. He kept seeing the letter, like it was burning in his pocket. Every clink of coins in the tip jar reminded him how far he was from saving his home. When the shift ended, he walked slowly through town. The evening sky was painted orange and purple, and lights from shops glowed warmly. But inside him, it was still dark. He passed the bakery, where sweet smells filled the air. He passed the bookstore, where couples held hands. Everything looked normal, but his life was falling apart. At the corner of the street, he saw Lily. She was standing near the library steps, holding a bag of books, smiling at an old woman she had helped cross the road. Daniel stopped. For a moment, just looking at her made his heavy chest feel lighter. She had always been like sunlight, breaking through his storms. "Daniel," she called, waving when she noticed him. He walked over, trying to hide his sadness. "Hey, Lily. Out late. Just picking up some books for tomorrow's lesson," she said, her voice cheerful. Then she studied his face, her smile fading slightly. "You look tired. Everything okay?" Daniel hesitated. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he was drowning, that he was about to lose everything. But pride stood in the way. He forced a smile. "Yeah, just a long day at the diner." She didn't seem convinced, but she didn't press. Instead, she touched his arm lightly, a gesture that sent warmth through him. "Come on, walk with me. It's been so long since we've had time to talk." As they walked under the streetlights, Lily spoke about her new students, about how she wanted to inspire them to dream bigger. Daniel listened, his heart both aching and grateful. He loved hearing her voice, but it reminded him of the gap between them. She was building a future. He was fighting to keep from losing his past. When they reached her house, she turned to him with a gentle smile. "Daniel, you don't have to carry everything alone, you know. I can see it in your eyes. Something's wrong. And when you're ready, I'm here." Her words pierced his pride. For a moment, he wanted to hand her the letter, to let her see the weight he carried. But instead, he just nodded. "Thanks, Lily. Good night." She watched him leave, her heart heavy with worry. She knew Daniel too well. He was hurting, even if he refused to say it. That night, Daniel sat again at his table, staring at the letter. He thought about Lily's smile, her words, her hand on his arm. For the first time in weeks, he whispered a prayer. "God, I don't know how, but please don't let me lose this house. Don't let me lose hope." And somewhere deep inside, a small voice told him that love that was patient, kind, and true had power greater than money. Maybe, just maybe, love could pay the debt life had laid on him. But he didn't know yet how. He only knew that the 30 days had begun. The next morning, Daniel woke to the sound of rain. It tapped gently against his window, steady and unrelenting, like the thoughts in his mind. The letter still lay on his nightstand, the black words sharp against the white paper. 30 days. Less now. Every tick of the clock was another second closer to losing everything. He got up slowly, running his hand through his hair. The mirror showed a face that looked older than 32. Dark circles sat beneath his blue eyes, his skin pale, his shoulders heavy. He forced himself into his work clothes, though he had no shift at the diner that day. He needed something, anything to keep him from thinking too much. Downstairs, he brewed weak coffee and sat in silence. The walls of the house seemed to watch him, whispering memories. The photo of his parents on the mantel. The scratch on the kitchen door from when he and his brother used to race their bikes inside. Every corner of this home was alive with his past. Losing it meant losing a part of himself. But how do you fight a mountain of debt with empty hands? Daniel decided he had to try. He couldn't just wait for the storm to swallow him. He opened an old notebook where he kept ideas and wrote down everything he could do. Work extra hours at the diner. Ask for small jobs around town. Sell the old car. Maybe ask Lily? He stopped at the last point, staring at the words. Asking Lily felt wrong. He didn't want to be a burden to her. She was building her life, starting fresh in Willow Creek. Why should she carry his mistakes? But then, he thought of her words last night. You don't have to carry everything alone. Daniel shook his head. No, not yet. He would fight with his own strength first. If he failed, maybe then he would let her know. That afternoon, he walked to the diner, even though it was his day off. The manager, a middle-aged woman named Carol, raised an eyebrow when she saw him. Daniel, you're not on the schedule. I know, he said, trying to sound casual. I was wondering if you had extra shifts this week. I can do mornings, nights, whatever you need. Carol looked at him closely. She had always liked him. He was hardworking, polite, never complained. But she also knew business was slow. I'll see what I can do, she said. Maybe some extra hours on the weekend. Daniel thanked her, though inside, he felt the sting of disappointment. Extra hours wouldn't cover the debt. He needed something bigger. So, he spent the rest of the day walking through town, asking for odd jobs. At the hardware store, he helped unload boxes. At the gas station, he wiped down windows. At the park, he trimmed hedges for an old man who paid him with a few wrinkled bills. By evening, his hands were sore, and his pockets carried only $25. It was a start, but a tiny one. As he walked home, the sky cleared, and the scent of wet earth filled the air. He passed Lily's house, and once again, she was on the porch. She wore a simple sweater, her hair tied back, and she was holding a mug of tea. She smiled when she saw him. You look like you've been working all day, she said, setting the mug down. Want to come in for dinner? I made too much soup. Daniel hesitated. Part of him wanted to say no, to avoid her questions. But the warmth in her eyes broke through his pride. He nodded. Thanks. I'd like that. Inside, her house was small but cozy, filled with the soft scent of lavender. Books lined the shelves, and photos of her travels decorated the walls. Daniel felt a pang of longing. Her world looked rich in meaning, while his own felt like it was collapsing. They ate together at her small wooden table. The soup was simple chicken and vegetables, but it tasted like comfort. Daniel ate slowly, grateful for the warmth filling his stomach. So, Lily said gently, are you going to tell me what's going on? Daniel froze. What do you mean? She tilted her head. You've been carrying something heavy. I can see it. You can hide it from others, but not from me. We've known each other too long. He looked at his spoon, then at her. Her eyes weren't judging, only caring. It broke something inside him. He sighed. It's the house. I owe money. More than I can pay. They're going to take it if I don't pay in 30 days. The words spilled out, heavy and raw. For the first time, he said them aloud, and they cut him deeply. Lily reached across the table and took his hand. Her touch was steady, soft. Daniel, why didn't you tell me sooner? Because it's not your problem, he said quickly. It's mine. I don't want to drag you into it. Do you think I care whose problem it is? She asked softly. You matter to me. Your pain matters to me. Her words made his throat tighten. He wanted to speak but couldn't. Tears stung his eyes, though he tried to blink them away. Lily squeezed his hand. We'll figure something out. You're not alone. For the first time in weeks, Daniel felt a flicker of hope. Not because the debt had vanished, but because someone was standing beside him. That night, as he walked home under the stars, he carried her words with him. They were like a lantern in his darkness. The days that followed were a blur of work. Daniel took every small job he could find. He worked double shifts at the diner when Carol allowed it. He painted fences, carried groceries, even washed dogs. At night, his body ached, but his mind kept counting. The bills in his jar at home, the days left on the calendar. 26 days. 24. 20. But no matter how hard he worked, the numbers didn't add up. The debt was a mountain, and his hands were small stones. One evening, after another long day, he sat at his kitchen table, staring at the jar of money. It wasn't enough. Not even close. He felt despair creeping back in, heavy and suffocating. Then there was a knock at the door. He opened it to find Lily, holding a folder in her hands. I've been thinking, she said, stepping inside. And I might have an idea. She opened the folder, revealing papers, applications, job listings, even charity options. There are programs for people in debt, grants, temporary relief funds. And she hesitated, then looked at him firmly. I could lend you some money. Not all, but enough to make a difference. Daniel shook his head quickly. No, Lily. I can't take your money. I can't. Why not? She asked, frustration in her voice. If I were drowning, wouldn't you help me? He swallowed hard. Yes, but... Then let me help you, she said, her voice softening. This isn't about money, Daniel. It's about love. About not letting someone you care about fight alone. Her words silenced him. He stared at her, at the sincerity in her eyes, and felt something stir deep in his chest. Love. Real love. The kind that didn't just speak, but acted. Still, pride fought inside him. Could he really let her pay the debt life had thrown on him? The rain began again outside, pattering against the window. The house felt quiet, waiting. And Daniel knew the truth. Sometimes, love was the only currency strong enough to pay what life demanded. The question was, would he let it? The night stretched long after Lily left. Daniel sat at his table, staring at the folder she had given him. The papers inside were neatly arranged: job applications, government aid programs, charity contacts. Her handwriting filled the margins with notes. Try this one. Deadline next week. I'll help you apply. And then there was the envelope. She had slipped it in quietly, almost shyly, and told him it was only a little something. But when Daniel opened it, he found several crisp bills inside. Enough to cover at least 1 month of his late payments. He closed the envelope quickly, his chest tight. He felt both relief and shame at once. Relief, because help was finally within reach. Shame, because it wasn't his own strength that provided it. Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. Pride had always been his companion, for better or worse. His father had raised him to be independent, to stand tall and pay his way. Accepting money even from Lily felt like admitting failure. But wasn't failure already here? He had tried everything. He had worked until his hands were raw. He had skipped meals to save coins. And still, the numbers didn't add up. He rubbed his face and whispered into the quiet house, "Dad, what would you do?" No answer came, only the echo of rain outside. The next morning, Daniel decided to take one step at a time. He couldn't bring himself to touch Lily's money yet, but he could look at the job listings. He carried the folder to the library and sat at a wooden desk, filling out applications with trembling hands. A warehouse worker position, a delivery driver, a night security guard. None promised much, but any income was a thread of hope. Lily found him there hours later, hunched over the forms. She sat down quietly across from him. "I knew you'd come here." Daniel looked up, tired but grateful. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'd survive," she said softly. "But you don't have to survive alone." Her words warmed him, but also cut deeper. He was still resisting the full gift she wanted to give. As the days passed, Daniel worked harder than ever. He picked up extra shifts at the diner. He helped neighbors with repairs. He even borrowed his friend's old truck to deliver firewood in the evenings. Every night, he came home exhausted, collapsing into bed with sore muscles and an empty stomach. But he never complained, because the house the home filled with his parents' memories was worth every drop of sweat. Still, as the calendar days were crossed out 17, 15, 12, he felt panic rising. He had gathered some money, but not enough. Not nearly enough. One evening, as he was carrying boxes out of the hardware store, his old high school friend Mark stopped him. Mark was well-dressed, with slicked-back hair and a confident smile. "Danny boy," Mark said, clapping him on the shoulder. "You look like you've been through war. What's going on?" Daniel shrugged. "Just working." Mark leaned closer. "You need real money?" "I know a way. Quick jobs. No questions asked. You'll pay your debt in no time." Daniel frowned. "What kind of jobs?" Mark smirked. "Deliveries. Driving. Sometimes carrying packages. It's safe. Mostly." Daniel's stomach tightened. He didn't need to ask more. He could hear the danger behind the smooth words. Illegal work. Easy cash, but dirty cash. "I'll think about it," Daniel muttered, turning away. But all night, the temptation haunted him. 30 days. A mountain of debt. And here was a door, even if it was the wrong one. The next day, Lily noticed the dark look in his eyes. They sat together in her living room, the glow of a small lamp between them. She handed him tea, studying his face. "What's on your mind?" she asked gently. He hesitated. Then he told her about Mark's offer. Her face grew pale. "Daniel, no. Don't even consider it. That path will take everything from you. Your freedom, your dignity, even your life." "But what if I lose the house?" he whispered. "What if I lose everything anyway?" She reached out, cupping his face in her hands. Her touch was tender, steady. "Then we'll rebuild. Together. I'd rather see you lose a house than lose yourself." Her words struck him like lightning. Together. She wasn't just offering money. She was offering herself, her presence, her love. And in that moment, Daniel realized the truth. The debt wasn't just about money. It was about his pride, his fear of being seen as weak. But love doesn't see weakness. Love sees worth. Tears burned his eyes as he whispered, "I don't deserve you." She smiled softly. "Maybe not. But love isn't about deserving. It's about giving." That night, Daniel finally opened the envelope again. He laid the bills on the table, his hands trembling. It still wasn't enough, but it was hope. And hope was more than he'd had yesterday. The next week, something changed in Daniel. He still worked hard, but he stopped carrying the weight alone. He and Lily filled out applications together. She cooked for him when he skipped meals. He fixed her broken bookshelf, and she laughed as they worked side by side. For the first time, the debt didn't feel like a curse. It felt like a test. And together, they were stronger than it. Yet the deadline kept moving closer. 10 days.
7, 5.
On the final week, Daniel received a letter in the mail. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a notice from one of the programs Lily had helped him apply to. His application had been accepted for emergency aid. Not enough to erase the debt completely, but enough to cover a large portion. Daniel dropped the letter and laughed, tears in his eyes. He rushed to Lily's house, holding the paper. She read it, then hugged him tightly, joy shining in her eyes. "It's working," she whispered. "We're going to make it." But the clock was still ticking. Even with the aid, even with his savings, even with Lily's help, they were still short. The bank wouldn't wait. On the night before the final deadline, Daniel sat at his kitchen table, the folder open, the money stacked in small piles. His heart ached with fear. He had come so far, but he was still missing the last piece. Then, a knock on the door. He opened it to find Lily, holding something behind her back. She stepped inside, smiling softly. "Close your eyes." Daniel frowned, but obeyed. He heard the rustle of paper, the sound of her setting something on the table. "Now look." He opened his eyes. On the table was a check, large enough to cover the remaining debt. Daniel's mouth fell open. "Lily, what is this?" She looked at him, her eyes steady. "It's everything I've been saving. For a future. For a dream. But right now you're my dream. And I won't let you lose this house." He felt his knees weaken. "I can't take this. It's your life, your savings." She interrupted softly, placing a hand on his heart. "Love doesn't count the cost. Love pays the debt." Daniel's vision blurred with tears. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. For the first time, he let go of pride, let go of fear, and let love carry him. The next morning, he walked into the bank with Lily by his side. He laid the money and the check on the counter, his hands steady. The debt was paid. The house was saved. And as they walked out together, hand in hand, Daniel realized something deeper. It wasn't money that had saved him. It was love. Love that gave. Love that believed. Love that paid the debt when nothing else could. But this was not the end. The house was safe, but now, a new journey was beginning. A journey not built on fear or pride, but on love strong enough to carry both of them. The air outside the bank felt different that morning. Crisp. Lighter. Almost as if the weight of the world had shifted from Daniel's shoulders. He stood on the steps, staring at the sky, and for the first time in months, he could breathe without the heavy stone of fear pressing on his chest. Beside him, Lily smiled. She didn't say anything, but her eyes spoke more than words. Her hand slipped into his, warm and steady, and Daniel knew he wasn't just free from debt, he was free from loneliness. They walked back to Maple Street, the morning sun glowing across the rooftops. The town looked brighter somehow. The bakery's sweet scent floated through the air. The bookstore's bell chimed as a couple stepped out, laughing. Life moved on, as it always did, but for Daniel, everything felt new. When they reached his house, he stopped at the gate and turned to Lily. "I don't even know how to thank you. You gave up your savings, your future plans, all for me. I don't deserve it." Lily shook her head gently. "Daniel, stop saying that. You don't have to deserve love. You only have to accept it." Her words sank deep into him. He had spent so long believing he had to earn everything: his father's respect, the town's approval, even Lily's affection. But love didn't keep accounts. Love gave freely. That evening, after Lily went home, Daniel walked through his house slowly, touching the walls, the door frames, the furniture. Everything looked the same, yet different. Before, the house had been a prison of fear. Now it was a sanctuary again. Saved not by money alone, but by love. But as he moved through the rooms, a thought struck him. What now? The debt was paid, but the fight wasn't over. He still had no stable job, no clear path forward. He couldn't let Lily carry him forever. He needed to rebuild not just the house, but his life. The next morning, Daniel went to the diner early. Carol, the manager, was surprised to see him so energized. "What's gotten into you?" she asked with a laugh. "Hope," Daniel answered simply. He worked with new strength that day, greeting customers with real smiles, moving quickly, helping wherever he could. People noticed the change. Tips were a little bigger. Conversations felt lighter. Even Carol, who had grown used to his quiet gloom, said softly, "You look alive again, Daniel."
Keep this up.
In the evenings, he and Lily often sat together on her porch, sipping tea and watching the stars. They talked about everything: books, dreams, childhood memories. But sometimes they sat in silence, and the silence itself felt like music. One night, Daniel finally asked her, "Why did you come back to Willow Creek? You had the whole world in front of you." Lily smiled softly. "I thought I came back for a teaching job. But now I know I came back for you." His heart tightened, full and aching. He reached for her hand, holding it gently. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Lily." "You'll never have to find out," she whispered. But even in love, challenges waited. Word spread quickly in town that Daniel had been close to losing his house and that Lily had helped him. Most people admired her kindness, but some whispered, "She's wasting her savings on him. He should have been more responsible. What kind of man lets a woman pay his debt?" Daniel overheard some of these whispers one afternoon at the hardware store. Shame crept back into him, stinging worse than before. He hated being seen as weak. He hated the thought of Lily being judged because of him. That night, he confessed his fears to her. "People are talking. They think I'm less of a man because of what you did." Lily listened quietly, then took his face in her hands. "Daniel, listen to me. What people say doesn't matter. What we have is real. And real love doesn't measure itself by money or pride. Real love builds. Let them talk. We know the truth." Her voice was steady, but Daniel still felt the wound of pride. He wanted to prove himself not just to the town, but to her. The next week, an opportunity came. One of the job applications he had filled out with Lily's help finally answered. The warehouse downtown needed a supervisor. The pay was steady, the hours long, but it was honest work. When Daniel got the call, he felt like shouting. He rushed to Lily's house, breathless with excitement. "I got it. A real job." She hugged him tightly, joy shining in her eyes. "I knew it. I knew something good was coming." That night, they celebrated with a simple dinner. For the first time in months, Daniel felt like he was stepping into a future, not just running from the past. But with the new job came long hours and heavy labor. Daniel left early each morning and came home late at night, his body aching. Sometimes he was too tired even to talk. Lily worried, but Daniel always reassured her. "It's worth it. I'm building something now. For us." Slowly, he saved money again. Not much, but enough to feel the difference. He repaired the broken steps on his porch. He repainted the kitchen walls. Each small change felt like planting seeds of hope. One Saturday afternoon, he surprised Lily by inviting her to his house. When she walked in, she gasped. The living room, once dull and worn, was freshly painted. A vase of flowers sat on the table. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Daniel smiled shyly. "It's not much yet. But I want to rebuild this place, not just for me, but for us. You saved it. Now I want to make it a home worthy of you." Her eyes filled with tears as she hugged him tightly. "Daniel, love already made it worthy. But I'm glad you see it now." Seasons began to change. Leaves turned golden, then fell. Snow dusted the streets, and Willow Creek glowed with Christmas lights. Daniel and Lily grew closer with each passing day, their bond stronger than whispers, stronger than pride. But the journey wasn't always easy. There were nights Daniel came home exhausted, questioning if he was enough. There were mornings Lily worried about his health, urging him to rest. Yet every challenge drew them closer. And one snowy evening, as they walked together through the town square, Daniel stopped suddenly. The Christmas trees sparkled with lights behind them. Children laughed in the distance. The world seemed still. "Lily," he said softly, his breath misting in the cold air. When I thought I was going to lose everything, you gave me more than money. You gave me love. You paid a debt I couldn't. And I don't ever want to live without you." Her eyes widened, tears shining as he knelt on one knee, pulling a small ring from his pocket. "Will you marry me?" Lily's hand flew to her mouth, her heart pounding. Then she whispered, trembling with joy, "Yes. 1,000 times yes." The square erupted with cheers from people nearby who had seen, but Daniel only saw Lily. Only her smile, her tears, her love. That night, as they walked home hand in hand, Daniel knew the greatest truth of all. Debts fade, pride crumbles, money comes and goes. But love builds what nothing else can. And their story was just beginning. The storm of the past had calmed, but the memories remained. Michael sat in the little garden he and Lily had grown together, the fragrance of roses surrounding him. He stared at the blue sky, letting the soft sunlight kiss his face. For the first time in years, he felt peace in his heart. Yet, deep inside, he knew the final chapter of their story was still unwritten. Lily had been discharged from the hospital a month earlier. Though she was still fragile, her laughter once again filled their home. It was a sound Michael had thought he would never hear again, and it gave him strength. Every day, he made tea for her, held her hand, and read stories aloud. Sometimes he read about love, sometimes about journeys, and sometimes about debts that were paid in unexpected ways. But the weight of the past still pressed on Michael. The debt to the loan sharks had been cleared, thanks to their friends from different countries who had stepped forward when they needed it most. Maria from the Philippines had sent money, without asking for anything back. Park from Korea had offered advice and comfort. Chun from China had reminded them of the strength of family. Arjun from India had shown kindness that warmed their hearts. Emma from the USA, William from the UK, Sarah from Australia, Robert from Canada, Hans from Germany, and Claire from France, all of them had been part of their healing. It wasn't money that had saved Michael and Lily. In the end, it was love, given freely by others. One quiet evening, Lily sat beside Michael on the porch swing. Her hair danced gently in the breeze as she looked at him. "Do you remember the day you begged those men for mercy?" she asked softly. Michael's eyes grew heavy with memory.
Yes.
"I remember how powerless I felt. I thought I was losing everything, our home, our dreams, even you. I was drowning, Lily." She reached for his hand and pressed it to her chest, where her heart beat steadily. "And yet, love pulled you back. You didn't see it then, but every act of kindness, every prayer, every hand stretched out to us, it was love paying the debt." Michael closed his eyes. He thought of the strangers who had become family, the friends who had become brothers and sisters. He thought of Lily, who had never once abandoned him, even when the darkness was thickest. Tears escaped his eyes, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of gratitude. Weeks later, Michael gathered all their friends for a simple dinner. The house was filled with voices, laughter, and warmth. The table overflowed with food from different cultures: adobo from the Philippines, kimchi from Korea, dumplings from China, curry from India, apple pie from the USA, roast beef from the UK, pavlova from Australia, maple syrup pancakes from Canada, bratwurst from Germany, and French pastries that melted in the mouth. As they sat together, Michael raised his glass. His voice trembled as he spoke. "I once believed love was just about two people. But I was wrong. Love is bigger. It's about hearts that connect across borders, about strangers who choose to care, about sacrifices made without expecting repayment. You all proved that to us. When I could not pay my debts, love paid them. And it didn't just pay money, it paid with compassion, with time, with healing, with life." Everyone's eyes shone with emotion. Some smiled, some wiped away tears. Lily leaned her head on Michael's shoulder, her eyes glowing with pride. That night, after the guests had left and silence filled the house, Lily whispered, "You see, Michael, we were never alone. Love carried us all the way." Michael kissed her forehead gently. "And as long as I live, I'll carry this truth. When love pays the debt, no one is ever poor again. Years later, when their story was told, it was not remembered as a tale of money owed or payments made. It was remembered as the story of two people who nearly lost everything, but were saved by something greater than wealth, saved by love that crossed oceans, languages, and cultures. And so, Michael and Lily grew old together, their hearts forever rich. Not in gold, not in silver, but in the currency of kindness, which never runs dry. The debt was gone, but the love remained. And in the end, it was love that had written the final word of their journey.
The end.